face, my Wally man, had my little Wally man under my suit jacket, and I'm like, but we're not going to ask God for the money. We're going to thank him in advance because we're doing the job he's called us to do. This is his mission, and the money is his problem. We're just going to drive those buses till we run out of money, but we're not going to run out of money. God's going to provide it. We're going to thank him in advance. And I looked really brave on the outside, and on the inside, I was scared. And on the inside, I was thinking, Jesus, you better do something cool, or we're both going to look dumb. And that's what I was thinking. Well, a little bit after I said that up front, still feel a little awkward saying it, this guy, normal-looking guy, looks like me, right, drove a normal car, wearing normal clothes. He interviewed me for something else. All the people I asked for money said no, or no, nothing significant. I need 35 grand or I'm going bankrupt. And we were interviewed, and I shared with him our challenges, financial, and he said, well, what's your plan? I was like, I don't know. I'm driving buses till I run out of money, and I need to find someone rich who likes the ministry. He's like, I could help you out a bit. I go, I've heard that many times. I can help you out a bit. Sometimes people make a really big deal and give me an envelope, with my name on it. I go home and I open the envelope, it's a $20 bill. Now, I appreciate all the donations. When you're running 5 buses, you need more than 20, right? So I was like, how much are we thinking? Like 5,000, 2,000? Let's go big, 10,000? He's like, 100, 200 grand. I was like, huh? In the back of my head, I was like, did that guy just shrug his shoulders at 100 or 200 grand? I was like, yeah! On the outside, I'm a professional. I was like, interesting. Can we talk more about that? Well, I ended up asking him for $35,000. He gave me $150,000 just in time. And I have a lot of stories like that. I wasn't being lazy. I was working the list. I was out doing proposals, talking to everybody I knew, and just nothing was working. And God provided for me the last minute. For me, that's another faith miracle that I say God is actually real, and when you take the risk of following God with all your heart, he honors it. Well, that's been a big part of my conversion, right? First of all, I grew up in a religious environment. Had a Christian home, Christian family, went to Christian school, Christian university, worked at summer camp, and then along the way, I made a commitment. Made a first commitment when I was 13. The spirit was willing, the flesh was weak. I strayed from God, and then, when I spent that summer with Dad, the 2 years with Dad, I came back, and when I was 18, I got rebaptized before I went to work at Bible camp. And so I had a religious commitment. Now, the thing is, we always talk about this. We never talk about the opposite. We always talk about conversion. We don't normally talk about deconversion. So this happens when we grow up in a religious environment, and then we transition to a non-religious environment. And sometimes when we do that, or young people do that, they like it. I actually like this better than being in church. And they like it. And then, they might just start asking questions, right? As they're in this non-religious environment. And as they ask us questions, sometimes we give them faith-based answers to fact-based questions. It doesn't line up, and it doesn't satisfy, right? And we're not sure exactly when or how it happens, but one day, right, that person, they're just driving one day, and it occurs to them, I don't believe anymore. They just kind of realize, I actually don't believe. They kind of think their way out of believing in God. They think their way out of Christianity. Another deconversion experience people have is they go from a religious experience, right? They go to summer camp or a weekend seminar, and they give their heart to the Lord, and they're excited. There's this event that happens that's so positive for them. Then they have an event that happens that is so negative for them. That is faith-crushing event. Like their loved one gets cancer, and they pray for their loved one, and their loved one dies anyhow. And there's a point where they say, I just can't believe anymore. My cousin's like that. He's a very generous, loving, kind-hearted man, and in his words, he's worked with too many sick children in the hospital. And he's seen children suffer and even die, and he's like, I just can't believe in a God who would allow that to happen, right? Their childhood faith couldn't handle their growing-up experience. And in their mind, they can't deny reality, and their understanding of God just doesn't fit with this very challenging experience they have. Instead of saying, I don't believe in God anymore, they would say, I can't believe in God anymore. And we met some people like that. I know some of my former teens from my church, I was their youth pastor. They say, I want to believe in God, I just feel that I can't, you know? And the other one is people make a religious commitment and then they start having too much cognitive dissonance, right? This would be a bit more of my brother's experience, right? There's too much dissonance. They just say, it's just easier to not believe, right? And how can you know God is real, right? What about all these problems, right? And the answers we give don't satisfy. And then one time they just kind of give up and say, you know what? I've thought my way out of this. I don't believe anymore. I'm choosing not to believe anymore. It makes more sense to not believe anymore. So what are some things we can do? We're going to get to my brother's story here in a second. Number one, don't give faith-based answers to fact-based questions, right? Really try and hear. My questions are different than other people's questions, right? A lot of people really struggle with the problem of good and evil, right? How can a loving God allow little kids to die from cancer? That breaks my heart as well, but that doesn't create doubt in my heart, though. But for other people, that's a huge thing. And so don't be dismissive, right? And don't give simple answers to complex questions. Maybe just say you don't know. Maybe go and jump on Google and say, what are the ways? I use AI. I actually don't use Google that much. I use artificial intelligence now, and I'll use multiples of them. What are the best answers to the problem of evil? I'll give you a summary of it and kind of dig in a little bit, right? But try and when you get big boy or big girl questions, try and give big boy, big girl answers, all right? Related to that, about faith-based answers, don't give shallow answers to deep questions. And the third thing I would say, now this one's very subtle. You always got to look for the assumptions, right? There's going to be these arguments you're going to hear. I don't believe in God. Look for the assumptions, and particularly look for what version of God they are rejecting. Most of the things my brother rejects about religion, I also reject, and Jesus also rejects. The hypocrisy of some believers. Who did Jesus get mad at? Did Jesus get mad at the pagans doing all those horrible, immoral things? Did he get mad at the Roman military oppressors who are killing the Jews for no reason? They killed so many Jews on crosses, they ran out of trees around Jerusalem at some points in time. Think about that. Did Jesus call them out? No. Who did he call out? He called out the church people. And that's what my brother rejects. And that is what, not that I reject church, but you know what I'm saying? I reject the bad things some of us church people do, and that's what Jesus also rejects. So look for what version of God they are rejecting and agree with them. Try and find common ground, okay? Let's talk about my brother's experience here, okay? So first of all, my brother, right? A lot of us young men, right, we're very resourceful, and this is before there was the internet, right? You remember, you all know what that sound was. Before the internet, there was other ways to see pictures of girls not wearing very much. Well, a lot of young boys found that. I found that with my friends. We knew we weren't supposed to. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying we did. But we didn't read the articles. We were just looking at the pictures, okay? Again, not saying you should, just saying what happened, right? My friend found his mom's boyfriend stashed in the back of the filing cabinet, like kids find stuff, you know? My brother, though, he read the articles. And of course, the articles promote what you would call the Playboy lifestyle. And they have, you know, these scientists on there, which we now know is pseudoscience, right? That pornography doesn't hurt you or whatever. But there's all this promotion of the Playboy lifestyle, and the pornography is good and healthy and all this sort of stuff. And my brother internalized the values in the magazines, not just looking at the pictures. So even when he was in the church, when he was a teenager, I remember him asking my dad, and I did some stuff I shouldn't have done, but I knew it was wrong. Right? My brother asked my dad and I, well, where does it say in the Bible you shouldn't sleep with your girlfriend before you're married? And we're like, right there, fornicators will not go to heaven. And over here, fornicators will not inherit the kingdom of God. And over here, you know. And he's like, but it doesn't really say it. And we're like, what do you mean it doesn't say it? It says they're not going to go to heaven. That means it's wrong, right? But he internalized that, right? The other thing was not just that, my brother's experience was quite different than mine, even though we grew up in the same home. Let's go to the next slide. All right. Even though I had a scholarship to go public university, I went to the Christian university for more money and a smaller scholarship, right? Little small miracle. My brother went to University of Calgary. Again, I don't want to trash talk public school, but my brother's experience was very different. He didn't have all those different Christian groups on campus to be a part of, all his volunteer experiences. And to this day, one of his favorite classes was evolutionary psychology. I remember he brought his textbook home one day, and I was looking. It was this little comic book, and it looked like the movie Planet of the Apes, where it had like humans with a chimpanzee face. And right in one of the first few pages, one of the human chimp things was talking to the other one and saying, we humans, we're just basically apes in the fast lane. We're just like gorillas or chimps with oversized frontal lobes. We're just really smart animals. And in the class, you basically learn we should just live like animals. It's unnatural to be with one woman and one man, right? Chimps don't do that, right? Chimps have just kind of a free-for-all everywhere. And some humans do, and it works really bad, by the way. When I was in the hood, this doesn't work, right? You have 5 kids in the same home with 4 different dads. It is not good for the kids. It's not good for the home. God can work through that situation. That is not the ideal, and that is proven by science, by the way, by real science. But my brother adopted this, and he took the explanatory. He says, this explains human behavior. Evolution explains human behavior more than the Bible does. This makes more sense, and also, it justifies a free-for-all, if you know what I'm saying, right? And so that he really internalized the values. Now, he was still a Christian then. He was still going to church, but this was when he was a young adult. And years later, over a decade later, this was one of the big seeds that had grown into a tree of doubt. Instead of 8 years at a Christian university with Christian professors giving me PhD answers to my doubts, he was getting PhD doubts to his high school answers. That's a different experience. Next slide. And then the other thing, I agree with my brother on this. We have family problems. Now, I grew up in a very traditional family. I grew up as a Seventh-day Adventist Reform movement. So that is, you take your most conservative Adventists and you make a whole church out of them. And they're very big on Ellen White. They're very big on prophecy, very big on we have the truth, okay? And I like Ellen White, and I like Bible prophecy, and I like the truth. I try to be a little careful, though, on how confident I am that I have the truth. Right? That's another sermon, though. But if we have the truth, then why do we have 2 brothers who haven't barely talked to each other for 20 years? If we have the truth, why is it 20 years that our family members are fighting over the inheritance and can't get along? Like fighting. Like the judge is going, you guys need to figure this out. Grow up. And these people are fully adults. You know what I'm saying? And so he looks at some of this hypocrisy, right? We have the truth, Jesus is love, but then we can't love each other within our own family. He says, that's garbage, And I agree with him. I don't believe Jesus is garbage. But, and with our young people, church, it doesn't matter how much truth we give them. If we can't get along with other church members, the young people don't care about the truth if they don't see the love. Now, we don't just say love and no truth, okay? I'm not saying that. We need both. If Jesus is truth and Jesus is love, his followers should be the most loving people and the most forgiving people, amen? And so, again, that's something I agree with my brother on, and it makes me very sad. Another thing is after 9/11, after September 11, there's been this new atheism. So again, it used to be, I don't believe in God, but religion is good for people. When the terrorists flew the planes into New York City and the Pentagon, it was always there. The movement became popular, what they call the new atheism, that religion isn't true and it's bad for us, because those people who flew the planes into the buildings were religious. And it wasn't just radical Islam is bad, all religion is bad and evil, and we should do away with it. Let's go to the next slide. And there's some of these famous scientists, like Richard Dawkins, started writing a book. He wrote a book called The God Delusion, which again, all religion is a delusion and is bad. right? Trust me. As my brother saw the videos, he has the book and he has about a 1-hour YouTube video which he just attacks Christianity for 1 hour straight. Of course, he takes really smart atheists and he finds the dumbest Christians possible. It's like a political video. You know, you take the most smart person on your political team, then take the dumbest person who votes the other way and like, see how dumb the other side is, right? Is not intellectually honest, right? But it's the first time I saw the video, I was like, oh, this is PhD, world famous scientist, and he's like attacking it nonstop. Well, my brother said this video, what it did, it put into words, it articulated doubts he already had. Like if God is real, why doesn't he bring amputee arms back? You know, as we hear people being cured from cancer, okay, sometimes people get cured from cancer anyhow. So it's like, why aren't there, you know, people have an arm cut off, why don't they have an arm grow back? Things like that. And that kind of cinched the faith for my brother, that in his own words, the straw that broke the camel's back was Friday afternoon at my dad's house. Okay, so that's a picture of myself, my brother in Saskatchewan, and Christopher over there, and our friend Josiah. So we're there, and it was sundown time. And traditionally in our family, growing up on the farm, we would have worship at Friday sundown, right? Until it got too late, because, you know, at June 21 is like 10:30 p.m. or whatever. So the plan was to have worship inside the house, you know, family worship with the Bible and songs and stuff like that. And my brother wanted to go outside, enjoy God's creation, and watch the actual sun set, not just be inside. And so he came in and talked to my dad, and maybe there's a few other people there too, said, hey, let's go outside and watch the sunset for Friday sundown. Let's go. And they're like, no, we're already sitting here. We're going to have worship, etc. And in my brother's words, that's when he knew it wasn't about God. It was just about tradition. That religion isn't really about God. It's just about tradition. Now, in my dad's defense, he clarified. He heard this sermon, and he called me up, you know, later on and said, you know, I appreciate your sermon, but by the way, it wasn't like he told us 2 hours ahead of time. We were all sitting down already for worship. He came in late for worship and then wanted us to stop what we were doing and all go outside and watch the sunset. If he would have let me know ahead of time, no problem. You know, you don't always get the whole story sometimes, right? But for my brother, that is, in his words, what really was the last straw. So none of this is really based on evidence. I know my ministry is called Evidence for God, and we're going to go over that. It's really people's journey also. It's not just evidence, it also includes their experience. And that's why it's so important for all of us, especially young people, also older people, to prioritize having spiritual experiences outside of Sabbath morning church service. Coming on Friday night to a Vespers, right? Going to a women's retreat, a prayer retreat, a men's retreat, right? Going to camp meeting, having these other positive spiritual experiences, right? Again, a lot of the big things that influenced me, I looked there, and it was the 2 summers with my dad. My brother never spent a full summer with my dad after our parents divorced, right? He only was come for a week or a weekend at a time. I was there for 2 months straight for 2 summers, and that really was a big deal for me as a young teenager. I spent 3 years at summer camp. So my brother never worked at summer camp. He only had his experience. He went to church once a week at Calgary Central, and then he worked selling fruit on the side of the road, which he still does today. He makes so much money in the summer, he then goes to Brazil all winter, okay? And he's calling me right now. Hey, Will, how's it going? Don't know if you're watching this or not. I'll call him back later. And then I had 5 years at a Christian university that reinforced it. It was a safe place for me to ask my hard questions. To be honest with you, I don't know if I'd be a Christian if I would have taken that scholarship out to Ontario, to Queen's University, right? I would have had a better degree, a way more respectable degree from Queen's, but would I still be in the faith, right? And then, of course, then also my graduate, when I was in seminary, one of my favorite professors, I would knock on his door, he had a PhD in the relationship between science and faith, which for me was just perfect because I used to be a science major, right? And then I switched to a theology major. And so his PhD was just right what the doctor ordered for my spiritual journey. And then, of course, I've just seen God work in my life. And I've told him, he's like, have you ever seen a miracle? I'm like, well, there's this one, this one. I shared with him the $150,000. He's like, yeah, it must be like, People must sense things somehow. I was like, well, okay, that's also spiritual if people sense things without you telling them, right? I don't know, but you find a way to explain away the miracles. My brother's experience, of course, was not, instead of adopting my dad's morality, he adopted Hugh Hefner's morality, right? The ongoing family problems have been a struggle for him, and I don't agree with him anymore, but I also know that's not what God's ideal is, right? He did 4 years at public university, and especially the class Evolutionary Psychology. And then he saw the God Delusion video and did not read or look up the answer to it. See, I saw the video, I bought the book, and I bought the book by a brilliant former atheist turned Christian called The Dawkins Delusion that goes through the atheist book step by step and provides counter arguments. And then you can kind of weigh both sides of the argument, right? PhD questions, PhD answers, right? That's a fair fight. Alistair McGrath. And then, then my brother was a Sunset Tradition. Now for me, I've been all over the place. My brother just stayed in Calgary. I was in a different church at Burman University. I was at summer camp, that was different. I was over here in BC at the church over there. I've been in Michigan at several churches over there. So my church experience, I've been a part of many Adventist churches and interacted with many, many Adventists. And so having a few problems here, well, that's those problems. That's not everywhere. But the human brain, you take what you see and you project that out everywhere. So if you have a negative church experience, you've only attended one church your whole life, to you that is the church. Or if you've been in many churches, as I have, you say, well, that's that church, and this church is different, right? And so my brother's experience with the Sunset Tradition, he's only really experienced our church in Calgary, and then my dad's church, and that's it. And there's some things he doesn't agree with there. And so, sorry, I'm so used to using my phone as a remote. So let's go to the next slide here as we wrap up. So my brother has softened. He went from the honeymoon of like, yes, there is no God. I can do whatever I want. I can sleep in on Sabbath. I don't have to pay tithe. Let the kids watch the cartoons on Sabbath. Listen to whatever music I want. Who cares? Then after a while, he's like, some things are easier in church. It's easier to teach my kids right and wrong in church. It's wrong to lie because Jesus says so. That's how he taught his oldest daughter. Then his younger son was kind of growing up outside the church, and his son was lying, and he's like, lying is wrong because mommy and daddy say so. It doesn't have the same punch, right? And so he struggles more to teach his kid to be honest. So he's softened. He's like, some people are happier believing in God. He doesn't believe in God, but he has admitted some people are happier. So he's kind of softened his approach a little bit. And we've had it out a few times, till 3 in the morning. And one of the things I did is I explored my own faith. I dug in again on my own questions, and I found what I feel are really good answers, and then I kind of came ready with all the evidence I could to convince him back. So we'd be up till 3 in the morning going back and forth with the evidence. My brother actually went to me. We're in Saskatchewan, my dad's farm, and he's like, Walter, can you stop talking about so much science? And I picked up my phone and was like, excuse me, record. Can I record the atheist telling the Christian to stop using so much science? But this one time, I remember he turned to me and said, Walter, because he shared me all his questions. I'm like, yeah, I know about that one. I know about that. I know about that. I mean, I'm a pastor. I'm trained to know what these problems are, right? And he turned to me and said, how can you still believe in God? Let's go to the next slide. And this is what we're going to share a little bit this weekend. How do you still believe in God? Well, number one, I don't believe we have all the answers. When I look at the evidence side by side, again, the God delusion, and then take the answer to that, the Dawkins delusion, both written by people with PhDs, internationally respected intellectuals, and I compare them side by side, I think the evidence on Team Jesus is better, right? Number two, the experience. I know, I've studied some sociology of religion. Religion is good for you. On average, Christians are healthier. We live longer lives. We are wealthier. People regularly attend church, make 9% more money, right? We have a lower divorce rate. I've heard pastors say that we have the same divorce rate as non-Christians. That is not accurate. That is some myth. Can't go into it right now. People who regularly attend church have a lower divorce rate, right? Our kids turn out better, lower crime rate, lower addiction rate, etc. I'm not saying our life is perfect, but overall, most things in life are better for people who regularly attend church, including money and education. So the experience is better. Life is happier, and then also my own personal experiences. I've just seen God work. As I've committed my heart to Him, taken some crazy risks, God has always provided for me and my family, and things have always worked out. The truth, though, is no matter how much evidence you share, the truth is emotions and experiences often influence us more than logic or evidence. So what I'm hoping, though, is that as we share the logic and evidence as well, that if you bring loved ones to church this weekend, they can have an experience learning that to believe in God, you don't have to turn off your brain. So tomorrow we're going to talk about the best evidence I believe there is that God actually exists. What is the best evidence that you could take and share it at a public university, of which I have at Nanaimo? We did this whole series at Nanaimo, Vancouver Island University, and we had a lot of fun there. And I even had a scientist from the university listen to the lectures, loved it so much I did an interview with him afterwards, and it's still on my iPhone. I have not edited it and put it on YouTube yet. So pray for me and my time schedule. So that is it for tonight's talk. Now, we are at 8 o'clock. Do you boys and girls want to go to bed early, or do you guys want to play a game? You're a little girl that doesn't struggle very much to get out of the little girl body, huh? You're just right there. That's all there is. All right. Are there any other people that would like to stay here and play a quick game of Kahoot? Let's go to the next slide. Clayton, can you go upstairs and help me with Kahoot, please? Yes, Clayton Rodgers. Upstairs right now. You are 13. You're a better technology than anybody else in this room. All right. You go up the stairs and up the stairs and up the stairs and through the door. All right, so they're going to be loading that right now. We're going to play a Kahoot game. So you can go to the website kahoot.it. Pull out your iPhones. Come on, everybody. If you have a smartphone, sorry. No, kahoot.it is going to ask you for a code. So go, come on, get your iPhone out now. Okay, so go to the website, type in kahoot.it, okay? So those letters, Kahoot, period.it, and you're going to get this purple screen. All right, good. She has her smartphone out. Sirs, are you going to pull out your smartphone? She has one. You don't have your smartphone here? Your life is probably happier without it. Okay, good. Are you going to pull out your smartphone, sir? Yes. Okay, just checking. All right, smartphones back row. Yes, you got it. Pastor Bob has it. Mr. Shipowick. All right, let's see how this goes. All right, kahoot.it. Clayton is up there. Clayton, you got the laptop out? All right, is it loaded? I left it loaded up there. HDMI. Okay. Okay. I need a green light or a red light. Is that a we're going to do this, or is this a we're not going to do this?
We are going to do this.
We have to thank Jesus first, Dad.
Not working.
Do you need to see it to play it?
Yeah, you need to see it to play, because you got to see the answers up there, A, B, C, or D.
Oh. Can you read it to us?
I have no idea.
Satan's trying to stop us.
All right, where is you can get it going for church tomorrow, maybe? We'll do it for Sabbath. I don't think we'll have time in the main church service. We'll do it for Sabbath school, and we'll do it for the afternoon service. We'll have a bit more time then. Okay, sorry, we're not going to do that. Let's just go to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide there. All right. So come back tomorrow morning. We have a very fun time talking about, is the universe possible without God? You're looking at the fine-tuning of the universe. It'll be very interactive. It'll be very fun. It'll involve the kids and young people, and also the adults are going to enjoy it as well. We're going to talk about, is life possible without God? And then my favorite sermon, Santa versus Jesus, in the afternoon. You won't want to miss that. And I just got the phone call. It was last night. I got the phone call. We are booked to do Santa versus Jesus at the North Pole SDA Church. Not lying to you. Just got the booking last night. Let's have a word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for every person here, Lord, that we can come together on Friday night as we get closer to your Sabbath day, Lord. I know just in a few more minutes the sun's going to set here in beautiful Kelowna. Things that we can learn more about you. And Lord, as we just shared my journey towards you and becoming a defender of the faith, and we also shared my brother's journey, how he's had the opposite experience as me in many ways, and he's become an attacker of the faith, Lord. I pray that you'd be with each person here. Lord, help us to find answers to our toughest questions, Lord, and also to help the people that we love find answers to their questions, that they may not only grow stronger in their faith, Lord, they may also trust you with their lives. Bring lots of people here tomorrow, Lord, as we continue to explore more and more evidence for you. In Jesus' name, all of God's people said, Amen. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Pastor Walter.
Well,
I learned something new tonight, namely that there is a North Pole SDA church.
Yes.
Where is it?
In Alaska.
Wow. That's fascinating. I never knew that before. I thought it was exactly on the North Pole. Of course I didn't, but yeah. All right. Well, we're going to continue tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. So instead of having our Bible lessons groups, we're all going together here. So tell everybody who plans to come tomorrow at 10 o'clock. We continue with beautiful apologetics. I know your brains are going 200 kilometers an hour, right? Am I right? But as a teacher, I used to tell my students, if now you have more answers than questions, I think my presentation worked well, right? Because we're thinking, and that's all we need to do. Put our thinking caps on and learn something so we can be better at defending our faith. God bless you. Have a good night, and see you tomorrow.